Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I don't know what time of day you're watching this, but it's quite early here. I'm making this video before I get busy in my day. I had some thoughts I wanted to tell everybody that I was thinking through yesterday. I watched a lot of the Phillip Barnett stuff, and I think I'd seen or heard bits and pieces of him just scattered here and there, but I don't remember fully watching the guy. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that. It was very interesting. One of the things I found interesting was his date for World War III, which is November 11th. He doesn't think it's this year because he believes God told him he's going to be able to go on his honeymoon, or not honeymoon, oh my gosh, my brain is not awake yet. You know, his anniversary. They're going to go. Him and his wife are going to go on vacation and all that. But I don't think I don't think he's going to enjoy it very much or be there for very long, or maybe even make it there. So let's just start with that. I want to give you my honest opinion on Phillip Barnett. I believe the first dream vision experience he had that he wrote down was correct and from God. The rest of the stuff, I listened to it, and I listened to him. His second message, his Azovmania, whatever. I'm not sure what he called it, I forgot now. But basically, his view of Ukraine is very skewed. He mentioned nothing about the genocide of Russians that happened. He mentioned nothing about the group Azov, being Hitler and all that, supporting Nazism openly wearing it, openly supporting it. He mentions none of that. He mentions nothing about Ukraine being one of the most corrupt governments in the world. Like, he mentioned none of the reality side of this. He talked about how they're the most Christian nation ever. Yet for some reason they only had 12 churches in the entire country. Ukraine's huge. I can find 12 churches in the town near me. To make them sound like they were on the edge of heaven and just beautiful. Most of the saints were there, and that's why they were attacked. His point of view is extremely skewed and not correct. That I absolutely that set off all my alarm bells right there. Like, this guy is when he's like reporting on dreams, visions, he seemed to be very accurate and I see why God could use him, because he's like, no matter the punishment, I'm just going to tell it like it is, and if I die, I die. I could see why God could use somebody like that. But when it gets to automatic writing, let me tell you why I don't trust automatic writing. That's when, if you don't know what that is, that's when you sit there and you let a spirit take your hand and just go. Because automatic writing, you write in all your own thoughts in it, as well as whatever God is saying. He wrote the second one over a period of 12 hours, off and on all day long, taking his kid to school, coming back, and then he'd sit and he'd write some more, and he'd write some more, and he'd write some. I knew a person who did this, and she started off with she was spirit-filled, spent a lot of time in her word, and she started off with this automatic writing and tell all the things that God was telling her to do. And before you knew it, God told her to go to Israel. So, by golly, she just told the whole family she's leaving. It's my oldest sister, by the way. She tells the whole family she's leaving. She tells me that God told her to leave in April, and that she was leaving in April. Lo and behold, nothing worked out, and she ended up leaving in May. I'm like, well, look, God didn't even know. I knew she was making a big mistake, but you could not tell her, because she heard it from God. And she had prophecies all written out for family members and things that was going to happen and all this and that. And she went to Israel and had the most miserable time. She had to kind of live under the radar for years and years and years, and she met a Canadian there. She had the most roughest, hardest life. She even said that God told her to give her inheritance away, that my dad had given each one of my oldest siblings quite a sum of money, and she gave that away to a brother who just couldn't hang on to money at all, and he just absolutely ruined her place, sold it for almost nothing, squandered her inheritance. And God never told her to do any of this. Okay? It was automatic writing that told her to do all this stuff. And where was it coming from? It seemed like she sounded so holy. She was, she was angry with the family. And so this was her way of being able, giving herself the strength to leave the area. And she couldn't find anybody to marry. And she had a lot of personal things going on in her life. But this is the problem. This is the problem, okay? Like for instance, if Philip was upset that the country was invaded and these things were going on, that's going to come out in your writing. Your thoughts and your own feelings are going to come out in your writings. Is everything he wrote incorrect? Probably not, but how can we tell? I don't trust automatic writing at all. So anyways, I just don't trust automatic writing. I've seen it ruin people's lives. People get off in their flesh. They get off to other spirits. They can just wander so easy. I really don't trust it at all. Especially when somebody says they feel this or they feel that. I think it's very, very dangerous to the soul. So anyways, this morning I did want to tell you I did believe the actual dreams and visions he received from the Lord. But the automatic writing stuff I would not take so seriously. Some of the stuff that he believes, like the Psalms 83 war, that's not going to happen till after the end of the tribulation. And the reason that they can gather wood weapons, if you right now we had a war and you went out to gather these weapons to burn for 7 years, you're going to be very disappointed because they're all metal. They're not even wood. Like the whole concept of the Psalms 83, Hellingway said the same thing, Psalms 83 war and the Gog-Magog war, that's all, Revelations clearly says it's all at the end. So he has a lot of stuff twisted up that way. He didn't know anything about Three-Eye Atlas. And it clearly says he mocked that, he mocked Joshua. He seems to be, my opinion is he knows some things, like that God gave him dreams and visions, but the rest is mostly just conjecture and him writing his conjecture. That's my opinion on it. Whether there's some truth sprinkled in and out of his second writing or whatever, there might be, but it doesn't even, as a lot of people said this in the comment section, he even contradicts himself. So, I think that God's going to straighten us all out in the end, but we do have to use wisdom. Like, does what he say match the word of God? Did not. Him saying Russia would be destroyed. Russia's the one that parks itself between and makes, Dmitry Duduman was told by an angel and in dreams and visions that Russia and China do go to war and they fight all the way to Paris. That part's true, but they make the Russians their leaders. Russia doesn't just disappear. Russia parks between Iran and Israel and tries to hold the line and hold peace. Russia doesn't disappear, and Russia, I do not believe Russia gets nuked at all. I have found Dmitry Duduman didn't say anywhere where Russia gets nuked at all. So, because they strike first. They strike first. He did see in the vision that 8 nukes went off at the end of Donbass, and that would be the reason to open the gates and let the people go and all that. But how that occurs, I'm not sure. But that was very interesting, because I know something has to happen for Russia to let everybody go and everybody to say peace and safety. I know that's true. So that the dream and vision I count quite important. I think that was directly from God. But the actual, that automatic writing, no. I wouldn't put very much on that at all, very much weight on it at all. I just don't trust it. So that's, and if you do, that is up to you. But anyways, I want to move on to some other things. I wanted to finish the story about my sister. She admitted, I don't know, it was 30 years later or something. She admitted that most of it never came to pass and it wasn't even true, and she did quit doing that. She did quit doing that. She's highly intelligent person as far as being able to remember facts and things, but she's also highly emotional. So I noticed that people that tend to do are called into prophecy do tend to be the highly emotional kind, and we see this in the Bible. We see it with Jonah, his emotional swings, Elijah's emotional swings. They do tend to be highly emotional, and they're able to receive very quickly words from the Lord, but they can also be deceived just as quick. And we see it with Peter. Peter was highly emotional, how he was the only one. I will die with you, and and I might get into more on that later. But there's a reason there. 5 kinds of the 5 love languages, and there's the 5-fold ministry. It's because there's a book written a long time ago called it's about 5 kinds of people, but it wasn't politically correct. It's not Christian, but it points out that there are 5 types of people, and it points it in such detail that you'll laugh all the way through it, because you find yourself and you find your neighbors and you find your family, and it's hilarious. If you want to go read it, it's called How to Analyze People on Sight. That's what it's called, and it's an old book. And like I said, it's not Christian, but when you start reading it, I did anyways, I started laughing because I found myself in the book. I found other people in the book, and then you understand that, hey, everybody doesn't work like me, and you really start understanding, there's a lot of wisdom there, and I've thought about teaching on it. I don't know enough about the 5 kinds of people to teach on it yet, but I do know a bit, and I do know it exists. That's why we have 5-fold ministry, and then the 5 love languages also book. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the new date and a little bit about that. I did go around to some other people's comment sections and put in the comment sections what I found, but I somehow in my spirit don't really feel to go on with this. I think Jesus is going to come for us in just a few weeks, and I think the faithful will be able to hold on without a date. And I don't, I went out, I was hoping that when I went around, and I went around all over and promoted everybody to go watch the Enoch calendar. And they did, but they watched the wrong date. And I can't help but think that God did that on purpose, that maybe He's just trying our hearts to see if we'll stay faithful regardless. And when I went back to correct a lot of these sites, even though I said it really nice, like, this is awesome, I'm glad everybody's watching, I thought it would be the 9th month, though. That when I said September, that God meant the 9th month. But I hope you're right. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. And like I said it really nice. And a huge portion of them just blocked me. They hide user from channel. So I can't go back and tell them the truth now. And I was thinking, that was not by accident. I don't think God wants the majority of the people to actually maybe even know. I think the whole point of the Joshua thing, this is how I feel. I'm not saying it is. I feel like the whole point of Joshua's message was not to give us the day. It was not actually to give us the day. It was to see if we could stand by faith when the day, because Joshua, even though he had the day, he didn't. Okay, he even believed it was going to be actual on the Gregorian, right? It wasn't about the day. It was about who would mock and scoff, or who would stay in prayer and receive answers from the Lord. Who would recognize Him when He comes? And my sheep hear my voice. Who can hear me and hold the line even when they don't understand? Who could hear that I spoke through Joshua? Who can hear it and hold the line no matter what they see? I think that that's the test, because God is looking, the 144,000 have to be, however many people that is, they have to be able to live by faith and not by sight. So I think what God was saying is, if you know you heard from me, can you hang on to what you know, no matter what's in front of your eyes? no matter what other people are saying to you, mocking you. How much can you take? How much can you take and put up with before you give up the truth that I revealed to your heart? I think God is just testing, not that he's, you're the faithless. He's just looking for those who have the most faith. That's what I actually think this is about. I like watching these videos with like horse training. I like psychology of animals and people. So I was noticing with police dog puppies that the guy will take and put his arm down in there. And the puppy that is the most anxious to get out, the most anxious to be with him, the one that jumps the highest, has the most energy, that's the one he starts working with first. I thought that was really interesting because it's kind of like what God is doing to his little puppies. He's like, okay, who is still the most on fire for me, even though all this has happened? And he's got his arm down to earth saying, which one of my little puppies is jumping the highest? They're the most trainable, they're the most eager to work for me, they're the most faithful. I think he's kind of doing that because he's looking for people for certain positions that he has for them. I know that nothing happens by accident. Like the message wasn't accidentally delivered the way it was. The outcome, I think was to be determined by our own beliefs and our own spiritual walk with God per person. And God wanted to see what each person would do. Because, he gives us free will. He gives himself an element of surprise. And I really love that about God. I love that he enjoys his creation to the point that, let's give them a choice and see what they will do kind of thing. I love that aspect about God, that even though he has all power, all authority, he's not heavy-handed with it in the way that you're not allowed or given room to have a mistake, to learn, to have, thoughts or to question things. I love him in the fact that he enjoys watching people develop. He enjoys watching us strive to learn and grow, and he loves helping us. And that is the aspect of God that one of the aspects that I really, really love about my Heavenly Father. And so, anyways, so today, let's just focus. I'm just going to be focused today on of course, every day I watch for Jesus. I watch the news. I watch for the events on my list, and I'll try to link my event list down below. If I don't, it's back on other videos. Plus, the guy with the correct Enoch calendar, and the calendars are set. From what I understand, I need to go watch it again. And I thought about making one, but I think we only have, 25 days left now. I don't know if it's worth it to make one for just 25 days. But he explains it so well how the calendar actually works, that that the months don't go, like we do, no matter where the moon falls, we go 1 through 30, 1 through 30, 1 through, or 31, 1 through 29. Like we do it like that. But God's calendar is a solar calendar, and it goes from new moon through the moon cycle. But then it also recognizes when you actually set your equinox, you set them correctly. So he explains it very, very well. He follows step by step. He shows his notebook of everything from the book of Enoch. And that's why it is Enoch's calendar. He got his calendar directly from God. In heaven was shown it. That's why no other calendar is the right calendar. It's Enoch's calendar is the calendar that God uses. I've seen so many people post ridiculous things about other calendars. Like, God didn't take any other person in history. Has there been no other writings that God took, that I know of, where God himself took someone to heaven and showed them his calendar, except Enoch? I'm like, why is people arguing that that's not the right, and even though there are different versions or understandings of Enoch's calendar, even that is in question. But I think what should never be questioned is if that's the right if the Enoch calendar that God gave him was the right calendar, whether we understood that calendar or not. So in my heart and mind, that is settled. And then Helengwe, a servant of the living God, who, visits and dreams and visions with God almost nightly and has a very anointed walk with God. The fact that she said that she saw it and that God said that was his calendar on top of everything else. So I think that is pretty much settled. And let's see, what else? What else do I want to cover? The Phillip Barnett thing, that was kind of strange. He's not a pastor now. He did something really weird. In the middle of his interview, I don't know if any of you watched it, but he struggles to talk. But in the middle, when he spoke a little piece in tongues, just randomly out of nowhere, and it wasn't spoke perfectly clear perfectly clear without struggle and a different voice. That was creepy. I'm not gonna lie, that was really creepy, and I'm not sure what to make of that. I will just leave that there, hanging out there as weird. That was weird. It was in a complete different voice. And the only time I've ever heard of anyone speaking in a different voice, it was an unclean spirit. I'm just going to say that was freaky. And like, for instance, my grandma on my mom's side, before she passed away, she held full conversations with her husband that had passed away before her, right before she died, in his voice. My dad heard his dad's voice in that room talking out of her mouth to her before she died. And she would answer, and they were having a conversation. So that was just kind of creepy. But I don't know what to make of that. You can go see that for yourself. I replayed it like 4 or 5 times. It did not sound like him at all. Not the way he was talking, but maybe maybe there's more going on there that I don't understand, but it was weird. I'll just leave that right there. One of the things that Philip has wrong is how many people are going to be here. And like, he missed so much in the Bible about the harvest, when God harvests the earth and the earth is rolled over and made empty. The earth is made empty. There's not going to be, he's got it set in his mind where there's just going to be people living all over the earth, and then we come back and live amongst them. God said the wicked would be removed. And that there'd be so few left that a child could count them on one hand. That's actually what the scripture says, that the earth, something about behold, the earth is made empty, rolled over. So for him to say and teach that there's just going to be whole pockets of civilizations here and all that, doesn't really line up with the Word of God. So I'm not sure where he's getting all that from. We all have so much to learn. I learn stuff every day. Obviously, he has not arrived, because he doesn't even recognize that demons are going to be here as aliens, because, Revelations 12, they were kicked out of the heavens, and they're kicked into the earth. Woe unto those, who are with them. They're physically kicked out. I really, there's so much there that he missed. Like, he does not all have the full picture, but he thinks he does. And I think, we're all a lot like that. Like, I think we're all going to have surprises, and I think we're all going to be, we all still have a lot to learn. But I think the dangerous part is when you think you've arrived and you know pretty much everything about everything. I think that's the dangerous part, when you don't think you have anything left to learn, and you've kind of shut your mind down, and you're just happy with what you have, and that's enough for you, and it's the over, and now you're going to, you're just going to do your own thing kind of thing. Which in a way is what he did, because he went to teaching music and all these other things. He kind of left ministry, which I can't criticize him for, because he's worked so hard, probably in his first year, than I've put into my entire ministry walk with God. Like, I'm not beating him down in that way. I'm just saying that I can see that a lot of the things that he said from the videos that I watched, that he doesn't have it right according to Scripture. So, but we all have a lot to learn. Like I said, I'm still learning. We're all still learning. God's always going to be teaching us, and we're always going to be learning new things, because God's ways are past finding out, and we have an eternity. So I'm glad I'm not going to be bored. I'm glad that I have new things to learn, and that God has all kinds of things for me to do so that I won't get bored, and that it gives my life a purpose. Like, can you imagine living your whole for eternity just sitting on a cloud doing nothing? That would be torture. Like, you're like, I want to do something. No, you just sit here and be a good girl. That would be so bad. I'm so glad God didn't do that. I mean, we all will need some rest, okay? Times of rest, but I don't think I want to sit forever on a cloud doing nothing. Well, I can't think of a lot else to say. My date, the date that I got by using Ted's calendar, I did ask him a second question. I'm waiting for him to answer me. I did ask him how he knew that it was the year 2025. I'm like, what if we're in the year 2024 and we're all sitting around and the prophecy was for 2025? But then Halingui said that I was listening to her, and if I understood her correctly, what she said is that we won't finish this year out. It's what God told her. So, which makes sense, because I was talking to my son about that, and he said, well, Ukraine can't go on. And we were talking about how Ukraine, there's no way they can go on. Something has to happen. They're losing on all fronts. They're losing their land. They know they're going to lose Odessa next, and because Russia said in the beginning, if you don't make a deal, there won't be any Ukraine left. And they just keep slowly chewing away. And why are they doing it so slow? They're doing it on purpose, you guys. They're doing it on purpose to drain our military, to drain us from weapons, to disarm Europe. And it's working. They're disarming Europe. They're taking all the weapons, our weapons stockpile, and depleting it severely. So... And I think one of the reasons that Russia does the major bombing of all the major cities, when you look at the U.S. map and you see that it looks like arteries almost going into a city, and then all the different veins kind of coming out. Those are highways. And I believe they'll strike all of those because they don't want us to be able to move any kind of military equipment. They want to kind of segment it to take us out bit by bit, because they know we're armed to the teeth with weapons. What do they say? 6-7 million guns are in the hands of citizens. So they don't want us to be able to move any of our military equipment that might still remain, or do anything like that, or put up any kind of front. God has bigger plans. I believe that He will split our country up in 3 different pieces, and I think that the geography, when all is said and done, when Jesus finally returns with us, this world will not be recognizable. We will not have the same continents. We're not going to have... Excuse me. One of the scriptures says that the Egyptian tongue, the tongue of the Egyptian, I think is it Iran there, that falls into the sea. It actually says it falls into the sea. Our geography is going to completely change. The ocean is going to rise, parts of the ocean, parts that we see now is going to go under. That's why when Philip tells where all the nations will be doing, they won't be there anymore. Most of the nations, Israel will be, but most of the nations, you won't even recognize them anymore. God's going to roll it over and put new, because it's all contaminated. So the plasma, here's what happens. At the very end, that planet comes through with its tail, okay? The day of the Lord, the actual day where everyone screams for rocks to fall on them and hide us from His wrath. That tail comes through like this. And it's so close to our planet this time on this approach that it will literally, the plasma will clean up. You know, all the radiation, everything will melt all the stuff. It's gonna, all the elements burning on fire, the Bible says, it's going to melt everything. You know, they've found in fossilized versions of cell phones. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there are hieroglyphs of the atomic symbolisms and UFO spaceships. There's hieroglyphs of them. And remember, everything that was before. Because why? Because it's all Nephilim, it's all alien technology, it's all demon technology, right? So here's the thing. This isn't new to God. In the flood, he had to deal with everything. When you see just layers and layers and layers of mud, and you know, they try to say, Earth is millions of years old, and here's this, and Earth is not millions of years old. We're about 6,000 years old, that's all. But this planet does that kind of devastation when it comes through. Like with the flood, there's just so many layers. I remember going to a Nebraska ashfall fossil beds up there, and they're trying to tell you everything's millions of years old, and they go, and here's and they name the dinosaur, and then right beside it is a zebra and an alligator. And this on the same layer died at the same time. You know, the thing is, I'm like, I see holes in your story of evolution. You know, why is my modern zebra and alligator right here beside your Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? Right? So, you know, you can go, I don't believe everything he says, but Mud Fossil University is a website that's really, or a YouTube channel really interesting, where he will actually take rocks and you can actually send them in. You can, with the right chemicals, you can pull blood out of them and send it in and have it analyzed. Guys, there's so much that's just hidden from us and from our understanding. And I know when God says he created the earth in 6 days, he did it in 6 days. When the earth is going to be only 7,000 years old, when he's done with it, it's going to be only 7,000 years old, and he's going to burn it up. It's not going to live forever. He said he's going to make a brand new heaven and a brand new earth, and with New Jerusalem and all that. He told us his plans. I think we just take him at face value by now. You know, I do. What he just says, he's going to roll the earth over. He's going to roll it over, and the only citizens left could be counted on one hand. I'm taking his word at it. And when he says that Gog and Magog is at the end of Revelations, I'm taking his word at it. You know, I'm taking his word for it. And I think when, you know, we read something like that, and I read that, you know, I'm taking it at face value that it is exactly what it says. And when he said from the time that Israel surrounded, told Daniel, till the time it's all over, is 1,335 days. I'm taking his word for it. You know, I'm not going to go in there and add anything to it. It is exactly what he told Daniel. That's exactly what it is. So if he said he's kicking out all of Satan's aliens and all that, and they're all coming to Earth, I'm taking his word for it. So I think we should need to have that kind of childlike faith and just say, well, I don't care if it makes sense to my brain or not. That's exactly what he said he's doing, and I'm taking his word for it. And all those who don't obey him and who love sin and all that, he says won't make it, I'm taking his word for it. And I don't care if people try to screw it up and say, oh, you're trying to get to heaven by works, and they try to dress it up in something else. I know exactly what God meant. You can go read in Revelations all the different types of Christians that don't make it, and why don't they make it? And he just says so I'm taking his word for it. I encourage each one of you guys to just be a little bit more childlike in your faith and trusting that if, you know, God told Joshua all this stuff and God revealed it to your heart, then take his word for it and sit and wait. Even if it doesn't make sense to you in front of your face, you go, oh, that day looks like it passed. That doesn't make any sense because God told me otherwise. I'm going to sit and wait because I obviously don't understand this, but I'm taking his word for it, that it will happen on that day. Whether I understand what day that day is, it will happen exactly as he said. And I'm waiting, and I'm taking his word for it. And just to have that kind of childlike faith and wait joyfully on him, know that he will give you everything you need. And that, you know, even like, look, Jonah sat there waiting to see what God would do with that city. And God explained to him during that time what was wrong with his faith, how he should have been, very gently, very lovingly. You know, I love the way he goes, "Doest thou well, Jonah?" He didn't say, "Jonah, you are such a jerk." He didn't say that. I love how the Father worded it. It was so loving and so endearing. "Doest thou well, Jonah?" I hear that a lot of times myself. "Doest thou well, Sherry?" I lose my temper or something. I'm like, So guys, let's be the joyful child. Let's be kids that aren't a pain to the Father, you know. Let's be joyful children, quick to learn, quick to listen, quick to obey. Let's try to be kids that are joyful to have. You know, we think about all of us that have been parents. You know what it's like to have a kid that absolutely won't do anything you tell them, or they'll only want to do the opposite of what you tell them. Always trying to like outsmart you, one step ahead of you. Let's not be that kind of child. Let's be the kind of child that is joy to have, joy to be around. And I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, God, I'm so sorry. Somebody, I was trying to think who said it. It was somebody that died and had a near-death experience, I think. And they saw the children of God like throwing stones at him constantly. And I thought, oh my gosh, I spent too much of my life doing that. I do not want to be that kind of child anymore. I don't want to be throwing stones at the Father anymore. I want to be the one that looks into his eyes and say, I trust you. You say it even if I don't feel it, even if I don't see it. I believe you. And I'm going to sit and wait patiently for you to keep your word and do the thing that you said you were going to do, which is come and get me. You know, he said that he was going to come and get us, and it would be soon. That's enough. Even if we have a day, don't have a day, whatever, can we not just sit patiently and wait for him and make the most of each day to get close to him, do anything he would have for us to do? Is that not the right way to live anyways? So, all right, I'm going to get off this. It's getting long again, but I just wanted to give everybody those solid words to hang on to today, and to follow what you know is right in your heart, and to do your best to follow the shepherd wherever he goes, to hear his voice, to spend time with him, and to love him. And then we show our love for him by our love for others, by praying for others, doing good for others. How can I help this person? Not what can I get out of this person, you know, which maybe you want them to agree with you, or you want something from the person. No, how can I help this person? You're not looking for anything back. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, guys, today. Love one another, do good, and I will see you in the next video. It might be later on today if there's big things happening in the news. So I always say that because I never know if I'm going to post later on. So God bless, guys. Bye for now. Happy Bible studying.